Okay, so I've got my selected areas. I've got my two areas that have been turned into masks. So I've got the bodies, the main section, and the ends over here. So I'm going to be on the end section. What I want to do is I want to switch on my brush tool, and in my brush presets I'm going to choose the one that says Copic marker, and it gives me this kind of wide brush. However, I can't use it very effectively on this angle. There's a few things I can do. If I hold down the letter R on my keyboard, I can rotate my canvas. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring that to the point where I'm going to try and use spacebar to move it up and just check that that's pretty parallel. So that's almost straight. I'm going to hit R again and just get that a little bit squarer. So to me that's pretty square now. So while that's orientated, that means I can more easily draw in a straight line. Now it doesn't matter whether I'm using a Wacom tablet or a mouse. What I want to be able to do is put lines across. We're going to start off just on the on this spherical end, on the ellipse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the ellipse over here, and I've got my brush tool over here. I've switched on my Copic marker already, and I'm just going to pick a suitable colour. So if I go into my swatches, I might use pinks. I'm going to go for a pink colour. Now I'm just going to do this really quick and easy. I'm just going to go across any old way to start with, and you can see how that works. If I hold the button down, I can just give it a solid colour. Okay, so that's easy, but it's only putting it where I want it to go. However, it's not quite so easy to be able to do the body section. So I'm going to click into the body section. I'm going to move across a little bit so you can see it. Now there's a trick here. In fact, there's a few tricks. We can change the opacity first of all, so we can make our brush not quite as dark. So I'm going to put a bit of transparency into there, make that 90%. Now here's a few tricks. First of all, while I'm in this area, I can still create another selection layer. So I'm actually going to create a selection now using this one called a polygonal lasso tool. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a white stripe. So an area where I'm going to leave white while I put colour over the rest. So I'm going to click, I'm going to drag my shape across, and I'm going to make it fairly thin. Come back over here. So I'm starting and finishing, and I make sure you can see the little 0 coming on to say that's joint, and I've got my marching ants. While that's selected, I'm going to take the selection and I'm going to inverse it. So what I'm saying is I'm allowed to put colour everywhere apart from in here. Okay, so reverse selection. I'm going to go back to my brush tool. Now if I want to make straight lines, I can do that by holding down the shift key. However, I've got to be very careful about where I first click. So I'm going to click once with my mouse, hear the click, then I'm going to hold down my shift button, then I'm going to drag across, and it will create a straight line for me. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go roughly to where I think that next one starts. I'm going to click once, hold down space, and drag across, and it lets me do straight lines. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to keep doing this now. I'm going to click, hold down shift, and drag. Moved across my page a little bit further than I wanted to then, so I'll just come back over here. I'm going to click, shift, and drag, and I left a little space there. So if I'm not happy with that, I can go to my history, go back one, and I can start again. Line. That's better. Okay, you get the idea. So in order to tonally shade this, what we need to do is we need to darken up some bits and leave other bits lighter. So I'm going to go over the bottom edges now, and I'm going to make those much darker. Same technique, click and shift. Let's try not to drag it quite so far. You can see I'm darkening that bottom edge up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to change my opacity a little bit more, make it a bit less again, maybe 60 this time, and I'm going to just do a few extra lines across to kind of darken up a little bit of the in-between, but not completely. Okay, so I'm getting that kind of streaking effect. Okay, what I might want to do now is to darken it even further. I'm literally going to change colours, and a great colour to use is always a kind of purpley colour. So we're going to go for a kind of purpley colour, and I'm going to use that just at the bottom to darken up right where the light will hit the most. Okay, you get the idea. So now if I deselect my marching ants by doing Control D and I press Escape, I will revert the page back to the way that it's supposed to look, and you can see the effect that you start to get on how you can do some shading. Okay, you leave a white space where you think the light's going to hit the object. Now you can play around with this tone as much as you want. You can use a finer brush, you can have thicker strokes, thinner strokes. The brush itself, if you press your right bracket or your left bracket, you can change the size of the actual pen you're using, and there's other pens within those presets that you can have a go with, different sorts of markers that will give you slightly different effect. Okay, I'm just going to show one other thing that's a quite useful thing to be able to do. When you've got a brush selected, I'm going to change the colour of this and make this maybe a yellow brush now, and I'm going to go into the brush tool itself, and you can see on the brush tool itself we've got this window, and the window shows me the direction of the brush. So we've changed the page rotation before, but we can change the brush angle as well. So if we change this, it changes the angle of the brush, which can be useful. One thing that you might want to do in terms of presentation, I'll just show you one other little thing that might be interesting for you. I'm going to go back into layers. I'm going to go back into my background. In fact, I'm going to take those eyes off there so we can't see that. I'm on the background layer, and I'm going to go for my selection tool again. This time I'm not going to select the shape, I'm going to select around the shape. So I've selected all the way around it. My marching ants are selecting the white area now rather than the object itself. I'm going to do what I've done before. I'm going to create a layer, and I'm going to create a mask layer. This time on this mask layer I'm going to change my rotation to make it a bit easier for myself again, and I'm going to go back to my brush. My brush is yellow now, if you remember, and I'm just going to draw some lines randomly across here. Now you can see it's only going on the areas where I want it to go. It's not going on the actual shape itself. You probably wonder why I'm doing this. It's all a bit weird, but the idea is that we create a visual impact by using an opposing colour. Let's press Escape and put that back, get this back in the centre, and switch ourselves back on, and that splash of colour makes your design stand out